concern people when it comes to immigration are, is it the case that when immigrants come into this country, they take jobs away from Americans, thereby increasing unemployment? 2, is it the case that immigrants, when they come into this country, are generally poor and therefore create a large number of people who are lower income and then become dependent on the Americans' welfare system? Here you're looking at the United States. Each dot is a year from 1970 to 2008. Across the bottom, we're measuring immigrants as a percentage of the population, and across the top, we're measuring the unemployment rate. And you find there are periods when immigration is particularly low, unemployment might be high, might be low. There are periods when immigration is quite high, and unemployment is actually somewhere in the mid to low range. There seems to be no relationship between unemployment and immigration. Here you're looking at the income distribution, and this is measured by what's called the Gini coefficient. The Gini coefficient ranges from 0 to 1, where 0 is complete equality, everybody's earning the same thing, and 1 is complete inequality, where one person earns everything and everybody else is destitute. And across the horizontal, we're again measuring immigrants. And what you see is there are periods where our income inequality is higher or lower and immigration is constant. Or here we have particularly high levels of immigration and our income inequality is at the median to low level. It seems from looking at this that there's no clear relationship between immigration and income equality in the United States. Let's look for a moment at skilled immigrants. Skilled immigrants over the period 2000 through 2005 were paid a total of $40 billion for their labor. So these are people who came into this country and they are paid by American companies a total of $40 billion. People look at that and claim this is $40 billion that would otherwise have gone to Americans had these immigrants not come here. What we're forgetting is that amongst those immigrants are people like Andy Grove, who founded Intel, or Sergey Brin, who founded Google. In fact, if we look at just these 6 immigrants who came into this country during this period, by 2008, the companies they founded were worth a tremendous amount of money. In fact, the combined market values of those 5 immigrant-founded companies are more than 6 times the total amount of money that American companies paid to immigrant workers over the period 2000 through 2005. What that suggests is that far from being an influx of low-income people who eat off of the American welfare system, and far from being people who come in and take American jobs, in fact, immigrants create companies that generate more wealth and create more jobs for Americans than the jobs that the immigrants themselves occupy.
So we've got a few questions for Kevin White and Dan Harrington about the benefits or the impact of immigration in the US. So the first question is, how are wages affected by immigration?
Over a long period of time, they're unaffected. Shown.
And Harrington?
Could you repeat the question? Oh, I see it. How are wages affected by immigration?
Yes.
Well, immigrants come in and they steal the low-skilled working jobs so that native-born Americans really can only compete for the high-end jobs or middle-class jobs. So they take away the low-skilled jobs.
Okay. And second question is, how does immigration impact job availability in the US?
Well, it says here that 30% of immigrants are more likely to start a business in America, so that will create more jobs, which is good.
Okay. Yeah.
But as I said, the low-skilled jobs are all being taken by them, so there's nothing we can do about that. So native-born Americans are losing jobs, or Americans who don't have a very high degree of education. have trouble finding a job because the immigration rate is increasing.
Okay. So, if the immigrants help build businesses, do they help the economy with paying taxes and stuff like that?
They actually pay 90 billion in taxes every year, so yeah, they do. And they only receive 5 billion in welfare. That's a big difference.
And then you said they get their low school jobs, right? So do they have to pay tax then?
Well, that's for the legal immigrants. There's a lot of illegal immigrants.
Okay. Does immigration increase poverty rate for American-born citizens? Okay.
I wouldn't say that immigrants do. I'd say that where they grew up, that has a big play on that, but not so immigration.
Okay. And that?
Well, as I said, the low skilled jobs are all being taken.
Cool.
So that leaves less job availability for low skilled American workers. So the poverty rate will increase, not dramatically, but over time it will increase as immigration increases.
So I've got a question of my own. So like, if these immigrants get the low school jobs, what is stopping the American-born citizens from actually getting the jobs before the immigrants get here?
Well, I'm not saying they can't. I'm saying that the chance of you getting it is much lower because they are willing to take a lower pay
So
rather than Americans. Because Americans, obviously, we want
better
like
jobs.
better than minimum wage, but
Yeah.
a lot of immigrants will come in and just want a job right away, so they'll take the lowest paying job they can find.
So it's not their fault that they're taking that job. It's just that they saw the opportunity and took it
Yeah.
because the Americans didn't want it.
Well, they don't want to do it to hurt the Americans. It's just they're doing what they think they had to do.
Okay. Are immigrant businesses good for the American economy?
Yes, they create jobs. They account for like 23% of all restaurants. So, they're pretty good.
And is there anything you want to say?
Which question was this?
Maybe 5.
5?
Yes.
Partially, but I think they also affect like the relative, like the lower wages across the workforce, so that the average like revenue of like a person in the U.S. is going down because more immigrants are coming in, so that less money is being paid.
Okay. And so what do you think should be done about immigration in the U.S.?
I think they should allow immigration, but not from like known terrorist like states, I'd say. But like help them, like help the people flee at least, but like not let them in, and then do background checks.
Okay.
I think we should do very thorough background checks so no person is left unattended to. And then we should cut down on more illegal immigrants because they don't pay any taxes. So they're hurting the economy.
So would you say the issue of immigration, is it because of the U.S. or is it because of other countries?
Well, obviously other countries are in like not as good a system as we are as the United States, but a lot of them are in like civil wars and just very bad areas with no government. So they're just trying to flee, but the U.S. can't take in every person that is trying to flee from a certain place because obviously they were in war and that's all they know.
And so these immigrants coming in, do they like play a role in the crime increase? Like, do they affect it in any way?
Well, they actually have a lower crime rate than the natives here, so I'd say they decrease the percentage.
Then would you say otherwise?
Well, they don't really have a great impact on the crime rate. Actually, what he said was correct, but immigration did increase the amount of aggravated assault in the U.S. That was just the one area where it increased. So it was more in immigrants in that whole spectrum rather than in Americans.
Okay, well, I think that would be it for today. Yeah.
All right, so the first graph shows over the past 100 years the amount of immigrants that have come into the U.S. And obviously the number in the 1900s all the way up to the 2000s, in between that it was much lower. But those two decades are very, very significant. The second graph it shows the number and share of the U.S. population comprised of immigrants and their young children has grown astonishingly since 1970 up until 2015. It's gone from 13.5 million up to 61 million, which is very significant. The third graph shows wages paid to Mexican immigrants as a share of total labor costs for employers by industry. So obviously, illegal American immigrants get less total costs as opposed to legal Mexican immigrants. And the fourth graph shows foreign-born share of workforce. So the number of workers in millions is foreign-born workers is 26.3 million. Then there's 130.9 million native-born workers. There's obviously much more native-born workers. And then the last graph shows the 5 most Hispanic cities in the U.S. and the population of 250,000 and above. And it shows that Hispanics obviously basically either double in Corpus Christi, Texas, San Antonio, Texas, and then in Miami, Florida, all the way up to El Paso, Texas. It's a much more astonishing number of Hispanic people as opposed to white and black people.